The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome, all politics on the show today. Just joking, but Nick Saban does talk to Congress. We'll have a preview of Tennessee's cornerbacks heading into spring practice, which is just a few days away. Also, Nico Iamaleava, I think, gets a little overlooked again. We'll discuss why he's not on a list of quarterbacks to watch for this upcoming season. And then a little bit later, also, we will have a Vanderbilt player was supposedly approached by the mob. Okay, that's not the type of player that I would go after, but we will discuss that. I would think you would want something maybe in a little bit of a bigger game, perhaps, this day in Tennessee sports history coming up as well. And Tennessee, with the SEC basketball tournament, is right around the corner. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
Never better. Older. So let's go ahead and get it out of the way. I'm 50 today.
Happy birthday, Dave. Congratulations.
I knew some people on the message board probably knew. I've gotten a couple of messages already. So I don't know at what age you're old, but I know that I'm not young anymore. I can tell you that. Jimmy Hyams joins us now, and we love having Jimmy on. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Dave, I'm doing great. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It doesn't feel real. I was just thinking, and we were talking before the show, how I guess you hired me in 2000. So is that math right? That I would have been 26 years old? I remember having trouble renting a car, I think, at one point.
That would be right. I think you were 26 years old.
What
when we hired you. But I thought you could rent one. I thought it was 25 was the car rental age.
Well, maybe that was
25 is.
Yeah, maybe that was somebody I was working with previously. We don't have to discuss them. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like it could possibly be that long. So there we go. It is my birthday, so I'm old. I don't know what age you get old, but I know that 50 is getting close to it. Jimmy actually, though, is like 38. So it's been fantastic. So
plus a few.
But maybe a couple. All right. So, Jim, we're going to get into the Nick Saban talking to Congress. And frankly, I think he nailed it, to be real honest with you. I know a lot of our viewers don't like Nick Saban. Also, we're going to talk Tennessee's cornerbacks with you specifically because I think you've got some insight there. But I really don't know that they know what they're going to do. It is time for today's tough question, and we do that right now. And that's brought to you by our good friends at Ray Varner Ford, who also brings you Jimmy Hyams' appearance each and every Wednesday. Today's tough question is now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All righty. Tennessee in the SEC tournament as the NCAA tournament seeding will await. The Vols probably a 1 or a 2, we would think. And Caleb has brought up this question a couple of times, and I see merit in both answers. But Caleb, let me just throw it at you. You state today's tough question, and then we'll get Jimmy's take.
So today's tough question is this. Should Tennessee throw the SEC tournament? I mean, chuck it. Not even try to win. Purposely try to go home. And I'm making the argument, yes. And I'm making it for a couple of reasons. 3 reasons, actually. The first and the biggest and most important one to me is that they need to get healthy and fresh. I do think they're healthy, but you saw against Kentucky last Saturday, because Rick Barnes plays his starters so many minutes, in particular Zakai Ziegler, the mental drain of beating 3 ranked teams in a row to win the SEC took its toll, and they weren't as quick coming off the screens, defending the perimeter shot, and that's why they got torched by Kentucky. So they need to get rest. The second reason is the NCAA selection committee over the past few years has shown they're not even weighing the conference tournaments anymore. The only impact the conference tournament has is if you win it, they'll put you in. But they have not factored it into their seeding at all. And it's been really weird, and I think problematic that they've done that because they've devalued the conference tournaments, but it's not Tennessee's fault that they've decided to not take those into account. And third, and most importantly, I think the difference between a number 1 and number 2 seed is minuscule. I don't think it's a big deal. And I think Tennessee would actually almost rather be a number 2 seed in the South region than a number 1 seed in the West region in the NCAA tournament, if you're asking me.
Jimmy?
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit. The NCAA selection committee arbitrarily determine if you win the tournament or you make a run, sometimes they reward you and sometimes they don't. They're inconsistent like they are with almost everything they do. Now, to Caleb's point about whether you're a 1 or 2 seed, to be honest with you, I don't really think that does matter. If you're a 2 seed in a certain region, you get to go to Charlotte and then Dallas, versus if you're 1 seed, maybe it's Charlotte and Los Angeles. So if you're Tennessee, you'd probably rather go to Dallas. There's a pretty good contingent of Tennessee alums in Dallas, and you'll get a better crowd there. So from that perspective, it would help you to do that. Being a number 1 seed would be a program first. So I think that would be a nice feather in your cap. But that doesn't matter if you lose in the second round, does it? So I do not have a problem with being a number 2 seed versus a number 1. I am interested in this, and I hadn't done the research on it. I wonder how many teams lost in the first round of their conference tournament and then made the Final Four. I don't know the answer to that. Caleb, you may have done the research on that. I don't know that answer. I don't think it's necessary for Tennessee to win the SEC tournament and still be a 1 seed. I think if Tennessee wins a first round game in the NCAA tournament, they're going to be a 1 seed. Unless Arizona wins the Pac-12 tournament, then that might change things. But I think if Tennessee wins 1 game in the SEC tournament, they're in pretty good shape. I would not feel good about losing the first round game and just tanking it. I don't like that. I don't like that approach.
I'm of the mindset, Jimmy, that if you get to Saturday, there's no way logistically that the NCAA selection committee can shift everybody around because let's say you beat Kentucky by 50 on a Sunday. I mean, you've already got 99% of the bracket done unless there's an upset. My take would just be Saturday. It's also our poll question. It's on the YouTube page. Tennessee would be better off, 1, losing the first game in the SEC tournament, winning 1 game in the SEC tournament, winning 2 games in the SEC tournament, or winning it all. Winning it all gets 61%, winning 1 or 2 games, but 17%, losing the first game in the SEC tournament gets 6%. Jimmy, we've had Ron Slay on the program, and he admitted, not throwing it, but he admitted that they weren't too excited about the SEC tournament and that they knew the NCAA tournament was how they would be judged. And they were a little bit lackluster. We saw that, but he confirmed it on this program that they weren't into it. I don't think it feels like a Barnes approach to not be into any game. He feels to me like the type of guy who, if there's a game of chess, checkers, or basketball, you ought to go out there and try to win.
I agree with that. Now, I'll also say there's a potential that has been to his detriment. I have talked to several coaches, and I've asked them, why does Rick Barnes win more than 67% of his games, but he's a 500 coach in the NCAA tournament, and he has lost to teams in which he has been a significant favorite in the NCAA tournament? And every one of them I talked to, there's only a handful, said that he works them too hard late in the year. They have too long of practices. They have 1 hour film sessions instead of 30-minute film sessions. And one coach said one reason Gene Cady at Purdue always had early exits is he had 2 hour practices and 1 hour film sessions. And Bob Knight would cut it down to 1 hour practices and 30-minute film sessions to make sure his players were rested. And the coaches I talked to said Barnes leans more toward the Gene Katie approach. That's not worked. Now, is he backed off some recently? Will he back off this year a little bit? I don't know. It typically has not been his approach. But I do think you need to have a team that's rested, not just physically, but mentally, which is why I don't care if they win the SEC tournament, but I don't like the idea of losing in the first round. If you're going to lose in the second round, at least put up some effort.
Yep. And Caleb, I want to get your thoughts on, because I know you're one that thinks the less basketball in Nashville, the better. My take is that it's more about the practices. I think an 18 to 24-year-old now can play basketball every single day and be fine. I think it's the practices that are more the issue. And I've been told the same thing that Jimmy has.
So compromise. What do you guys think about maybe
By the way, I've
playing-
never heard Caleb say the word compromise, just for the record.
I'm fine with compromise. I am fine with compromise. I'm going to be the Henry Clay of this show, if anybody knows history.
A day older, a day wiser.
So what I would say is, what if you guys say go all out in the NCAA tournament, but this time do load management in the sense of Rick Barnes says, I'm not going to play any of my starters more than 22 minutes in any SEC tournament game. I'm not going to, would you guys be okay with that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, regardless of how the game goes, for Rick Barnes to say, they're not logging any more than 22 minutes is the max. And if they hit that 22 minutes, I'm pulling them no matter what.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
That's interesting. Jim, I wonder what the SEC would say about that. Jimmy Hyams' appearance each and every Wednesday is brought to you by our good friends at Ray Varner Ford.
F-150 4x4 Super Cab, $44,992. A 2023 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,952. 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Crew XLT, $54,900. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Jimmy, what would the SEC say about that?
Nothing.
You don't think they'd say anything, really?
Nope. What are they going to do? Rick Barnes, you're not coaching right. And he's going to say, I've won 802 games, Greg Sankey. How many you won? So I don't. Well, and think about this. And I don't know if anything was said to him. I believe I'm right about this. So Southern Indiana was playing in the conference tournament championship against UT Martin. UT Martin rested 4 starters because Southern Indiana could not represent the conference in the NCAA tournament because they haven't been in the Division I level enough years. It's like you got to be there 3 years, and this is their second year. So UT Martin knew that they were going to go to the NCAA tournament. Even though they're a 500 team, they rested 4 of their starters so that they could prepare for the NCAA tournament. That was the approach that they wanted to take. Now, to Caleb's point, if you played your starters 14 minutes a game and rested them, okay. But 22, I think that's a reasonable number. And I don't have any problem with that. I think that would be perhaps a wise way to approach it to make sure that you do have your legs underneath you.
Pretty interesting. All right. Well, if you had to choose, though, guys, between the two of you, well, I know Caleb's going to choose get blasted in the first round, right, Caleb?
Get wrecked in the first round. Just get wrecked.
Okay. Get wrecked in the first round or lose a close one in the finals. I'm going to go with Caleb. Get wrecked in the first round.
So there's not an in-between?
There's no in-between. You got to do one in between.
I can't cavalier the question and say win the first round game and then lose after that. If I had my choice in that regard, I'd probably lean toward losing in the first round. But my problem is this, and it goes back to Dave, what you're alluding to. What if you lose in the first round and Barnes is still practicing them 2 hours a day and 1 hour film sessions? What have you accomplished?
Probably a second round exit in the NCAA tournament.
So if you lose in the first round and if you back off your practices and if you limit your film sessions, okay, I'll take a first round loss. But you've mitigated that if you continue to practice hard and long and have long film sessions.
It's interesting. Let's I like the way you think, Jimmy, and I can't believe that you and Caleb almost agree. I think this is the first time. It's 4 downs now.
I compromised.
We did. This was Congress. This is how Congress is supposed to work. Jimmy has his view. I have my view. We came together and we said, hey, okay, how about maximizing the minutes? Neither one of us got what we fully want, but it's something that works.
You guys just came together a lot better than Congress. It is time for 4 downs, and it's brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
All right, let's go ahead and get rolling and talk some Tennessee defensive backs. Cooper Mays, what should we do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
And what down is it, Coop? Did you know that sometimes on our show, the center calls the down, Jimmy, which makes no sense?
Yeah, but it's Cooper Mays.
Cooper here. First down.
First down, Coop. All right, so Tennessee's defensive backs, or cornerbacks particularly. We're talking just cornerbacks. We'll do safeties another day. But first down, who's the most dependable cornerback that Tennessee has? I'll open it up to both of you guys because I don't really know at this point, Jim.
Ricky Gibson. He played more than any other cornerback that was young that's returning. They lost 7 defensive backs from last year's team in the portal. Many of them, it was like a so what. But I think Gibson showed the most promise. I thought he was the best player. He got the most snaps. And so I think he is the most reliable cornerback returning for Tennessee.
Caleb?
Yeah, to Jimmy's point, I was dead wrong between the 2 4-stars last year. I thought Jordan Matthews was going to be the star over Ricky Gibson, and it looks like Ricky Gibson is the star, but that's just my bias too. I've never seen a Louisiana prospect not work out when it comes to Tennessee. But I'm going to go actually a newcomer. I'm going to go Jermon McCoy, the Oregon State transfer. He is proven. I do believe was freshman all Pac-12. And I think he's just going to lock down a starting job overnight at cornerback for Tennessee.
I will go with Gibson, like Jimmy. It's an easy way out, but I don't think that any of us believe there's a truly dependable cornerback, do we? And anybody?
I think Gibson could be, and I think McCoy could be. I think the 2 we named actually could be, but I don't know what you guys think.
Well, I would say dependably decent.
Dependably decent.
But not somebody that's an all SEC caliber player and not somebody that's a lockdown corner, but he's somebody you could play with and win with.
All right, if you have a question about a particular defensive back, go ahead and throw it out there. Let's go for second down, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right. Second down is this. Who has to step up? Who is the player? And if I may start first, I'm going to go with Jordan Matthews. I mean, Caleb and I have both been high on him, and now he's seemingly gotten surpassed by Ricky Gibson. They're both 4-star prospects. You would think they would have 2 lockdown corners by now, but they've got one that's okay and one that hasn't lived up to the hype that Caleb and I have helped build up. I'm going with Matthews as far as stepping up, Jim.
Well, I don't want to repeat people that have been mentioned. So I'm going to go, I think he's a corner. I'm going to go with Jalen McMurray from Temple, the transfer. They need, I think at least 2 of these transfers need to be, and I think the guy from MTSU, Jacoby Thomas, I think he's a safety. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, he's a safety.
I think McMurray is another guy. And it's kind of a bracket. It's either McCoy or McMurray that needs to come through. But I'll take McMurray as somebody that has shown promise at Temple, pretty good player. I think he needs to step up. And by the way, you need to have some depth in the defensive backfield. And he may not end up being a corner. He might be the nickelback, which in essence is a glorified corner, right? So I'm going to go with McMurray from Temple.
Well,
when it's not the best band ever.
Yeah.
Well, nickelback. Oh my God. All right. So Caleb, we're going to get into this on third down, but Jimmy and I were talking before the show, and there's going to be a lot of guys that we're not sure if they're safeties or corners, but I think some of that's going to be determined in the spring. But for what we know right now, who's Mr. Step Up? Who has to do that in spring practice?
Well, I am going to repeat because I don't see anybody but Jordan Matthews fitting that mold. And I actually like Jalen McMurray. I'm with you, Jimmy. I think McMurray and McCoy will find roles in. I could see a Gabe Judy-Lally type player in Jalen McMurray from last year, but I think that Jordan Matthews, there's no excuse for him to not be a leap off your screen type of player. I'm not going to go like star Alante Taylor or Bryce Thompson or somebody like that, but there was too much talent for him to not work his way into the rotation last year.
Yep. What down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Jimmy, we've already mentioned some guys we're not sure if they're going to play safety or corner or nickel or whatever. So is versatility in this particular group of guys good, or is it a sign that nobody's really grabbed onto the position?
I think you want versatility from your defensive backs. You want them to have the ability to play corner or nickel and safety. I don't know who all can do that with this group. Here's the thing that's kind of funny about this. I actually think there's some defensive backs in this group that have talent. I just don't know if they can perform at the level that they need to win in the SEC. They certainly didn't a year ago. And what was kind of ironic to me was that of these 7 defensive backs that left the program, most of them went to Power 5 conferences, Power 5 schools. So like Georgia Tech or Louisville or wherever. So what does that say about Tennessee not getting the most out of the players? I don't know for sure, but I do think there's decent talent. I do think you want them to be versatile, but I cannot tell you that they have multiple players over there that are as adept at playing corner and safety or nickel and safety. I don't know that yet.
Caleb, Jimmy alluded to something there that we're going to get into on fourth down, and that's coaching. But first, is versatility with this group good, or is it a sign that nobody has attacked and grabbed a position?
I think versatility in the secondary is always a sign that no one's attacked and grabbed the position, quite honestly. And I think that's always been, they talk like positionless football a lot of times, but whenever I've watched positionless football or positionless basketball, I just see nobody really stepping up in a role that they're supposed to step up in. I kind of turn it back to receivers for a minute. I remember, and Jimmy and Dave, you guys probably remember very well too, Butch Jones ran like 5 or 6 receivers out all over the field in different spots all the time, and nobody really was able to emerge or step up because of that. And I see the same with defensive back. I think you should have guys locked into positions. If you can.
All right. What down, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Thanks, Coop, for bringing the energy as always. Coaching, how much is that a factor? Jimmy, we've talked about Willie Martinez before. How much is coaching a factor? 4 downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas there in Athens. Having the best spas made right here in the United States of America in your backyard. Dynasty Pools and Spas, their showroom is open in Athens right off the interstate. You can stop by and check out the best hot tubs and spas in the market. And then delivery, yes, they can do that to Knoxville or Chattanooga. They've got complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. They also have pool chemicals as well. Dynasty Pools and Spas, amazing discounts for first responders, military, and even some blemish models that can save you a ton, and no one will ever notice. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go to dynastypoolsandspas.com or stop by that showroom in Athens. dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Jimmy, so Willie Martinez has been no factor, a factor, a significant factor, the factor in why Tennessee's defensive backs have not been very good under Josh Heupel.
All right, let me start with this. A star rating is not 100% accurate, but they're usually pretty good. In my opinion, if you took the star ratings of the cornerbacks and applied that to the performance, it would rank among the worst on Tennessee's team. I think the wide receivers have performed to their star ratings for the most part, going through the whole group, defensive line, whatever position. To me, the safeties have underperformed the most based on their star rating, which leads me to this. I think that Willie Martinez has been a significant factor in why the secondary has not performed better.
I agree with that. Significant, not the factor. Caleb, you?
I have to agree with you guys. And I don't want to. I think it's more about – I think it's more at safety than cornerback, to be fair, because Kamal Hadden did develop at cornerback from 2022 to 2023 before he suffered a season-ending injury. And we did see massive improvement. But I have to agree, there have been issues in the secondary with lack of development. And this isn't the first time we saw that. Jimmy, you were there covering the 2016 team. Bob Shoop got there and was supposed to be a defensive genius, and the secondary couldn't cover anything when Willie Martinez was there with him. And it was a total disaster. And honestly, we're seeing kind of the same thing now. And at what point, guys, do you say, everybody says, well, Willie Martinez is a great recruiter. Well, what's the point of that if you can't actually coach them to play up to their star ratings, as Jimmy talks about?
Good point. Jimmy, want to get your thoughts on Nick Saban. Nick Saban goes before Congress, says college football is not at all like it was in the 50 years since he's been a part of it. And do we want to play that clip, Caleb? I'll go ahead and pull that up and we can play that. Go ahead and fire that clip out right now, as Jimmy's appearance is brought to you by Ray Varner Ford.
All righty, here we go.
All the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college athletics. So it's always about developing players. It was always about helping people be more successful in life. My wife even said to me, we'd have all the recruits over on Sunday with their parents for breakfast, and she would always meet with the mothers and talk about how she was going to help and impact their sons and how they would be well taken care of. And she came to me, like right before I retired and said, why are we doing this? And I said, what do you mean? She said, all they care about is how much you're going to pay them. They don't care about how you're going to develop them, which is all what we've always done. So why are we doing this?
Wow. Pretty strong there, Jim. And I can't say that I disagree with any of that.
No, I agree with him. I think he's spot on with that. And to a certain degree, look, I've mentioned this to you guys before. I do not oppose NIL, but I oppose the structure of it, or the lack of structure, the no guardrails that we have right now. And I'm curious about, and he's right about this. It's changed from 50 years. It's changed from 3 or 4 years from what it used to be. And I know Alabama's program and other programs have been built on trying to recruit really good players, developing and create value for them at the next level. I do not like the idea that a college football player, basketball player, can be a free agent every year. Just put his name in the market and try to make as much money each year. I think that the collectives need to sign multi-year contracts with these players to at least hold them to a school for a while. And if they leave, they get penalized, just like when coaches leave and break their contracts, they get penalized. But he is right about that. And I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but I know there's a thought about, well, would Nick Saban be a good czar? Would he be a good guy to lead this? And I'm going to lean towards saying no, and here's why. Saban wants to win. He wants to control things. If he goes into this and he knows he has no chance of structuring this the way he wants it, I don't think he wants any part of it. And I don't think he's going to be able to structure this the way he wants it. So I think he would just say, I'm done. If he were to be asked to do it, I think he would maybe start out and say, I'm done with this. We can't accomplish anything. We can't get to where I want to get to. I'm frustrated. I'm out of here.
Good stuff. Jim, Caleb?
I'm going to break down the NIL problem real quick because I think we all agree it's an issue. But it's an issue that is very unresolvable because here's what you have to do. And guys, I don't think you can possibly do this. To fix the issue of NIL, you have to fix it in a way that, one, doesn't impede on the money going to the players because that's an antitrust violation. 2, doesn't impede on the money that is being generated from the football program to support other sports like women's basketball, baseball, softball, all the academic programs, you name it. There's no way to do that. It's literally not possible. Nobody can give me a way to do that. You can say something like a salary cap, but even a salary cap wouldn't be viable because that's an antitrust violation. You could say unionize the players, but if the players unionize, they're going to collect a lot more revenue from the football program that typically goes to support other programs on campus. So there's absolutely no possible way that I've heard of yet to allow for an NIL system, to allow for guardrails that, one, doesn't impede on a player's ability to maximize their money, or two, doesn't take away money from other sports that are being supported by the football program. Guys, I think it's a rock and a hard place. I don't think it's possible.
That's why I don't think Saban would want to run to be the point man on this. I will say this. Here's the other thing, too. If you unionize and you make the student athletes employees, or should I just call them athletes? They're not students, right? Just athletes. Yeah. Then their scholarship money is going to be taxable, right? Who wants that? If you go to a school and the yearly tuition is $75,000 and over 4 years it's $300,000, that's a pretty heavy tax that you're paying. They don't want that. So I don't know how you unionize without them being employees, and I don't know how you can not tax them if they are employees.
Okay, let me make sure I'm following you there, Jimmy, because I know they pay taxes on their NIL money now.
Correct.
Okay, so you're saying if they were employed, just basically employees, and were we talking about not going to class at all?
No, they'd be going to class. You'd still have to maintain eligibility. I'm saying that if you become an employee, that the scholarship money that you are given could be taxable. So if you go to Tennessee, it costs $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year for your scholarship, then that could be taxable. So you're actually losing money as an athlete in that regard. So the athlete, I'm telling you, these athletes don't want to have their scholarship monies taxed. But if they're employees, it could lead to that.
That's a great point. You could be just a dude who gets the $50,000 minimum to go to a school. And then after you go through it, you're thinking you're just getting taxed on $50,000, but you're actually getting taxed on that scholarship as well.
Yes.
Great point. Jimmy, I'm just curious. I've never asked you this. How would you fix NIL? 30 seconds from Ray Varner Ford, who brings you Jimmy's appearance. And then Jimmy's going to tell us how to fix NIL.
Welcome to Ray Varner Ford in Clinton, where every turn meets new possibilities and every mile celebrates the cutting-edge innovation within our Ford lineup. Elevate your journey in this new 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Cab, $44,992. A 2023 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,952. 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Crew XLT, $54,900. Local you trust, innovation you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
I'm making Jimmy Hyams the czar of college football. How do you fix NIL?
I would have you sign a minimum 2-year contract if you went to school, so you can't transfer every year. You'd have to wait 2 years to transfer. You get one transfer as an undergrad. You get one transfer as a grad student. That means you could play at 3 different schools in your career. I would have a salary cap, and the players would have to agree to it. Now, however you want to do that, but they would have to agree to it. I am intrigued by Saban's revenue sharing, which I don't know exactly how that would work, but I saw where he would want the revenue sharing. I also would make the NIL contracts with the players public. They want this money because coaches can come and go. Well, coaches' contracts are public unless you're at a private school. So I would make their NIL agreements public, and those would be some of the steps that I would take, none of which they would agree to. But that's what I would do to try to fix it.
Jimmy, great stuff as always. Have a fantastic rest of the week. We appreciate you. And it's been fantastic knowing you for now 24 years or something like that, or whatever the math is.
Been a long time. Caleb, enjoyed it. Dave, happy birthday.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. The big 5-0 today. Kind of crazy. And Jimmy brings up a really good point there. That would take away a lot of the potential issues between players. Okay, because Caleb, right now, players here, my grandmother used to say, you know what they say? They say Nico's making $2 million. And I'd go, Granny, who's they? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a former president who used to always go, some people are saying, I Greatest building in New York.
That's right. So right now, people are saying, and this is what's happening amongst the team. I heard that receiver from Oregon got 200 G's. Heard he got 300 G's. Heard he got 400 G's. Well, I want 400 G's because I've actually proven more than this guy. I want 500 G's. I want 600 G's. If it were public, then I think that transparency would actually help college football and would help teams like Tennessee that are already good at NIL. I like that.
I like the transparency issue, or the transparency thing. I'm a big fan of that. But again, this is going to have to be coming from Congress, because here's the thing. Guys, we got to make this clear. Now, de facto, effectively, it is being orchestrated through the school. But let's be honest. You would have to create a separate, you have 1099, 1040. You would almost have to create a separate tax system for NIL athletes, college athletes making revenue. Is that fair to say? Because how else do you enforce this? I mean, who's to say that Nico Iamaleava can't go to the local car dealership and sign an endorsement deal when anybody else in the world could do that for their market value? And who's to say that he should have more regulations for it?
Great point by Mark there. Revenue sharing would work if it started from the get-go, but now the cat is out of the bag. Nobody with a baby coming wants to share their money. They want more money. And there are some guys that have babies coming that are in there. So, yeah, I don't think that this can be put back in the bag. And you know who's to blame for that? Mark Emmert.
Yes.
Yeah, Mark Emmert. He could have done something. What? Caleb, am I exaggerating to say 20 years ago?
No, you're right. He could have. So let's address, because here's the other problem. And this is why I say there's just no way out of this. Nick Saban talked about revenue sharing, and Jimmy brought it up. And I agree. I think that's more effective than a salary cap, because you can't do a salary cap until the players unionize, or else it would be another antitrust violation. Theoretically, you could do revenue sharing. But Dave, here's what revenue sharing would mean. It would mean that you spend NIL money on Cooper Mays, right? He's on our show. You spend NIL money. I didn't mean to. Okay. It would mean that a portion of that money that Cooper Mays gets would have to be taken from him and distributed to the rest of the players. Well, if you're a car dealership or you're a restaurant and you want to strike a deal with Nico, you want that money going to Nico. You don't want that money going to the rest of the players on the team. That's going to hurt you, the business, trying to get an NIL deal with Nico, isn't it?
Yes. And yes. No, you're absolutely right. Because then Nico is going to say, well, I have to give him, let's say, 50% back. That's not going to work out at all.
It's not. So there's no way to do. There's no way out of this. There's no fix. I genuinely don't know what the fix is. You either have to violate antitrust law. You either have to have Congress carve out an antitrust exemption where somehow a college athlete's making NIL money is not a violation of antitrust. I don't know how you could allow them to carve out an antitrust exemption. That would violate the 14th Amendment in a heartbeat, the Equal Protections Clause. So that ain't happening. That law would be struck down by the courts.
And Mark saying Jimmy Sexton will soon represent the best high school players. I would be stunned, Mark, if Jimmy Sexton hasn't already explored opening up a separate branch of his department to do so. I would be stunned.
I'm just going to say this. Dave, why do you think On3 started as a website?
I think
this was what they were. This was Shannon Terry. Shannon Terry, who's the greatest genius in college football. We all agree. He started On3 because they were going to get out ahead of the NIL curve that they knew was happening. And they are already doing things like this.
Well, I know they are at the Tennessee level. I can't speak to other schools. I don't know that I would say he's the smartest person in college football, but he is very, very intelligent. And 2 minutes, here's what we're going to do. We are going to discuss a Vanderbilt player who is approached by the mob and more. That is absolutely still insane-o to me. This day in Tennessee sports history, and Nico Iamaleava gets snubbed once again. It seems to be a daily thing. Do me one quick favor. Hit that like and subscribe button and hang tight for 2 minutes. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, Off Thug Sports.
Sand and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Show represented by Banks and Jones. How about recruiting and prizes? Join Hooker's Corner. You see it on your screen if you're on one of our video platforms. With Hooker's Corner, you get the inside skinny on recruiting. You also get interaction with everyone at Off the Hook Sports, as well as weekly and monthly grand prizes. You can join now. The link is right below, just $9.98. And we're going to be giving away some of the State of Tennessee versus the NCAA t-shirts later this week. Those are going to print. So if you've already won one or purchased one, they'll be coming your way very shortly. And then we have the Brew McCoy autographed helmet that we'll be giving away as our March grand prize. If you're ready to buy instead, you can celebrate Tennessee's revolutionary lawsuit against the NCAA with the exclusive t-shirt that is, again, right below on our merch page. Relive the greatest season in Tennessee football history with a behind-the-scenes stories about the 1998 national championship team. Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 national championship. Personalized autograph. We have player autograph books as well, hard and soft cover. So certainly check it out. And it is right there, just $9.98. And we would love for you to be a part of that. What did you think of Jimmy's take that you should put those limitations on transfers? I liked it, but I don't know that you can do it. Can you? Because legally, I can't tell you, Caleb, that you can't go work for somebody else.
It would be another antitrust violation.
That's what I thought.
And
too.
I keep coming back to this would be the problem. Now, maybe the schools could collude, but then you'd have collusion arguments. But maybe the schools could be like, if we all agree to participate in this league, we'll say that like we won't take a player that transfers before 2 years, but they would have to all agree to do that. But then again, you can't put any stipulations like that without the players unionizing. Until there's a union, schools can't make those type of agreements. Now, depending on the state, depending on the region, I don't know how this all goes about, there are such things as like non-compete clauses or non-compete laws, like where like if you work for a McDonald's in this area, you can't go work. You have to sign an agreement to go work where you can't go work for a Burger King after that.
Very common in radio and or advertising, not just talent.
Yeah. So, and somehow that, I don't know how those don't skirt antitrust loopholes, to be honest with you, or antitrust laws. I don't know how those get around antitrust laws, because theoretically you should be able to maximize whatever you can make doing whatever you want to do. And companies shouldn't be protected like that based on the rulings of antitrust laws. However, maybe they could look at that as some sort of model for NCAA athletes and say, like, you know, whatever legal laws allow you to get around it. And but see, that's another issue, because some states now have outright banned non-compete clauses because they realize it's so anti-worker that they've just straight up banned it. So again, you know, you're in California, you go to USC, you can go anywhere, but Tennessee is probably more business friendly, so they probably do allow non-compete clauses. So you go to Tennessee, you're stuck in there. I mean, I don't know how you get around this. And
I agree. I don't know how you get around it. The other issue that I think is facing a lot of athletes too is the fact that it just is all hearsay. So the transparency thing that Jimmy brought up is that these are with public institutions. These contracts I know are with Spire Sports, and they're not public knowledge, but you're dealing with a public institution. There seems to be a loophole that they found there. Boundless Moving, from the 2-hour minimum to turnkey operations, they have you covered. Their motto, personal service without limits, not just a tagline. It's part of who they are, and it's in their DNA. That's who I choose. Boundless Moving, with an office in Charlotte and an office in East Tennessee. Boundless Moving can completely take care of you. I highly suggest you check them out. Hit the like or subscribe button now. Easy for me to say. Now, Caleb, we like Josh Pate, don't we? We think he does a good job, right?
We think he does a great job. I interviewed him last year at SEC Media Days. He's a great guy, and I'm a huge fan of his.
Yes. I think he does a fantastic job. And he has stated on his Twitter account that a player actually the day of a game said, "I'm not running out there unless I get more NIL money." How troubling is this? As a matter of fact, Josh Pate tweeted, "Overheard Clay Travis on Next Round Live pose the nightmare scenario of a top college football player holding out for more money the day of a game. FYI, that happened in the SEC last year." I did some digging. I don't know who it is. Josh Pate isn't revealing who it is, but how does that play out? Let's start just in the locker room. Does it play out where guys say, "Hey, you're getting what you deserve"? Or does it play out where, "Dude, we've got a game to play today"? What are your thoughts?
It's hard for me to know how it plays out in the locker room, because I don't know what the culture of college football locker rooms are today. You know, we talked to players from the 98 team. We talked to Fred White. You've talked to Spencer Riley a lot. I have too. There was we're going into battle together. You know what I mean? There was very much we are riding together. Even in the NFL is much more of a business, but you still at least get the idea in the NFL that once the contracts are signed and the teams are on the field and they're playing, they're going into battle together, right? Doesn't the NFL, don't the teams still have a sense of camaraderie once the season starts?
Right.
Like your Cowboys, when all their issues, they were having those issues together in the 90s. They were like, "We're doing this together. We're having our White House together."
That's true. I mean, they weren't doing the right things, but they were mostly together.
So
Caleb, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So, but with college football and how quickly the NIL is going now, and how quickly people are asking for more money, I don't know if any player of value right now that's probably already resentful that they can't just already go to the NFL. I don't know how any player of value is sitting around really caring about going into battle with their guys anymore.
Well, I think that players nowadays want you to get yours. They've seen far too long that you haven't gotten yours, and everybody's gotten rich except for the players. But I'm gonna say the day of would be a different take. I can tell you I talked to somebody over the weekend and that the decision had been made to play Nico Iamaleava earlier in the month than we thought, in the month of December. And Joe Milton showed up to practice with the Duke. Do you know what the Duke is?
No, I have no idea what that is.
The Duke is an NFL football. It's slightly larger, very slightly larger. Doesn't have the half stripes. He's throwing the Duke around. So what's he getting ready for? Is he getting ready for backup duty because Nico is going to be the starter and it's time to make the transition? Or is he getting ready for the NFL Combine while he's at practice? That rubs some players the wrong way. So whatever that line is, it exists. I don't know if it's game day, but I sure as hell think it is. I think if my buddy, if my teammate says, I got to go get me more money today, got whoever you are, coach, go out there and find somebody to stroke a check before it kicks off at 3:30. That to me is a big, big, big time problem. And I don't want him on my team, and I want him out of my locker room. That's it. It's game day. All bets are off.
So you guys can do process of elimination. Well, you can't really, but somebody do some research on all the games he called last year. Jordan Rodgers responded to Josh Pate's tweet. Jordan Rodgers, the SEC Network broadcaster, the brother of Aaron Rodgers, who played at Vanderbilt, said, yep, was on that game that week. Weird world in CFB right now. So basically, this is a game that Jordan Rodgers called. If you guys were questioning Tennessee, the only game Jordan Rodgers called last year was the Tennessee-South Carolina game. There were no holdouts in that game that we know of. That's the one game everybody played. So it clearly doesn't involve Tennessee, who Josh Pate and Jordan Rodgers are referring to. There are some names.
Well, I don't want to throw names out. I don't want to besmirch.
I'm just saying, you guys can read Twitter. There's some names being thrown out on their Twitter account that we're not going to throw out on this show because we're just seeing it on Twitter comments that no credible account is saying. But the truth of the matter is, let me ask you this, Dave. Who would be the coaches most likely to kowtow to a player like that?
Oh, man. I'm going to say everybody but the old school coaches, actually, which to me would be, Jimbo's not in it anymore, but no, he'd pay because he pays everybody. Okay. I'm just running through the list.
People who were in the SEC last year.
So last year, I think Saban would have said, get out of my locker room. I think Kirby Smart would say, get out of my locker room. I don't know of anybody else that would definitely, maybe Sam Pittman's an old school guy. Maybe Mark Stoops is an old school guy. I don't think Josh Heupel's culture would produce that, but I have a feeling he wouldn't tolerate it, even though he's not an old school guy.
He would sit him for the game, but he wouldn't kick him off the team. Saban would kick him off the team.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about going out in the streets and trying to get more money. Or calling boosters or saying, I need more money when you should be getting ready for a game. What coaches would not tolerate that and say, get out of the locker room? I think I know I'm leaving some people out, but all but the ones
I think the ones who would kowtow the most, and I'll just say it, you're right, Jimbo Fisher would have rolled over for an athlete who said that, right? Jimbo Fisher would be like, I want more money, and he'd be like, how much more do you want? When he do that. You know who else would do that? Lane Kiffin.
Would Lane make a call game day to a booster and say, I need an extra 100 G's or Bob's not going to run out there against Alabama? Do you really think he would do that? Portions of the program brought to you by our good friend Don Self. Don Self, the State Farm agent that absolutely cares about customer service in the Chattanooga area. 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126, or right below, donself.net, donself.net. Customer service still matters when you make that claim. Everybody's shopping for a price, but donself.net. Caleb?
Yes, I think Lane would make that call. I absolutely think Lane would. What if it's Jackson Dart? I'm not saying it is, but I'm not throwing Jackson. I don't think Jackson Dart did this.
Surely a quarterback wouldn't do it. Sure.
Yeah, quarterback. Yeah, okay, but I'm just saying in general. Would Lane Kiffin do this? What if this was 2009 Tennessee? Let's just go to 2009 Tennessee and Eric Berry did it. Again, Eric Berry would never do this. He would never do this. He's not that type of guy. But what if he did? You don't think Lane Kiffin's making a call that day?
Yeah, but my question is, do you have to go into the season preparing yourself with a little bit more in a reserve fund in case a player gets hot? I mean, look at Cooper Mays, for instance. We saw what happened in the Florida game. If he'd have wanted to, he could have leveraged during the season. I don't believe he did this, but he could have leveraged during the season to get more money. I don't think he did this. I think he did it the right way. And after the season, he said, I do think I'm worth something. And he absolutely is. But how many players during the season could suddenly leverage themselves? And you have to remember, a lot of these guys don't have relationships since they were 16 years old, like old school recruiting, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you might not even recruited that guy. I mean, I'm sure that Lane Kiffin probably recruited Walter Nolan, who transferred to Ole Miss, but I don't know that. Maybe he thought he was out of his league. So now Walter Nolan is the type of guy that's like, hey, I don't have any loyalty to Ole Miss. I don't have any loyalty to you, Mr. Kiffin. I'll do what I want to. To me, that lack of relationship is another reason that this could become more prominent. If it happened once last year and there's nothing done to prevent it from happening again, it's going to happen a half dozen times this year.
Yes, so I agree. Now, throwing some other names, Hugh Freeze, again, if Hugh Freeze would open up the checkbook too, he'd also be like, hey, how many prostitutes do you want to get on the field? I mean, he'd be like, oh, I got like 5 girls. You want 5 girls waiting on you or 6 when you get done? Okay. I mean, that would be Hugh Freeze, and then he'd preach about, how this is what Jesus would have wanted. And then, but Brian Kelly, he's old school, but I feel like he would have done it too.
I think it just depends how much money they're asking for. If they're asking for, hey, my mom got sick, I need this, that, whatever, or I'm not going to play, or I need you to send a private plane to get her because she was in a car wreck and she couldn't get here, and I just need a little bit of help. This could be, I don't want to knock Josh Pate or Clay Travis, but this, or Jordan Rodgers, this could also be a little bit of a misunderstanding, right? Like, I believe I deserve more money. I think I deserve more money. I want to go out there and play for you, coach. Or is this just clearly holding somebody for ransom?
Josh Pate. So Clay Travis phrased it as if somebody's holding for ransom. Josh Pate literally goes, this is what happened. Jordan Rodgers co-signs off on it. They're all agreeing on the same thing. This isn't like a game of telephone where one person's saying one thing and then somebody saying something different and somebody says something different and then the whole truth gets muddied. Jordan Rodgers and Josh Pate are literally like, what Clay Travis is saying is going to happen is literally what happened.
Has happened. Yes, has happened. It's done. It's over with.
Yeah, it's done. It's happened. So this is I think it's directly that. I think an SEC player held out for more money on NIL. And here's the other point. This is something that we don't talk about, Dave. There is in-season tampering going on in college football right now with players, right?
Oh,
and this is going to be the craziest thing I'm going to say to you. Okay, I'm going to get, this is crazy Caleb conspiracy today. Crazy Caleb conspiracy.
That would be something.
Okay. So, what if a booster at... Okay.
I know exactly where you're going here.
A booster at a rival school doesn't want the player playing that day. So he offers him a giant endorsement deal to not play. And then that player goes...
You were going. He doesn't even care if you... Okay, let's just say it's Auburn, Georgia. Okay, rivalry there. He doesn't even care if you end up playing for him. He just cares that you don't play for them.
Yes. What if that
Pay
happened?
a player not to play.
And then the player goes back to the school and basically says, I was offered this much money not to play. What are you guys going to offer me back?
Let me throw another scenario at you. What if you have a player that is approached by a booster from a rival school? Again, he has no ties. That's what makes, I think, what Josh Heupel is doing so special is because there's that great culture where they're loyal to one another. But let's just say somebody calls and says, you know, if you have a sore hamstring, it'd be worth $250,000. And you start with the hamstring, you're like, ow. I mean, a hamstring is one of those things that you can't really identify. A trainer will go, hey, what? Basically, the diagnosis is my hamstring hurts. Okay, you have a pulled hamstring. There's not a lot of tests you can do like an ACL. You have to trust the player. And he says, got a little bit of a hamstring, but I think I'll be okay. And then by game day, he doesn't play. Well, the booster of the rival team knows that he can lay more money via whomever. I would go with BetUS with their 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, and you get that 10% gambler's insurance. He could then lay money, and the line wouldn't be affected because nobody knows that this guy is going to fake a hamstring pop on Saturday during warmups. That's very doable too.
That is, but that
well, and the reason, not to interrupt, but the reason I kind of like mine a little bit more than yours is because then you could return to the team.
Yes, that's true, but that would then, I think,
$250,000 and come back.
And this is where Travis points out on the message board, and it's true. I think that would actually fall into I think that would fall under the point shaving laws, which is a federal crime for the NCAA. It's a federal crime to point shave. It's not because you're faking an injury the day of, which will really sabotage your team. And that is point shaving. It's not as much point shaving to say, I was offered money to not play, so give me more money to play. That I don't know if that falls under the realm of point shaving. So that's why I like my conspiracy better than yours. But
yeah, I don't know that Travis is right with point shaving if the guy doesn't go out there and play at all.
But if he makes the decision the day of to not play, that sabotages the team. That purposely sabotages the team. As opposed to being told, here's money to not play, and you go back to the team and say, here's what I was offered to not play.
Elias says, boy, howdy, this has become an entangled legal mess from every possible angle. It has. Levi said, are we forgetting the South Carolina issue with linebacker Jeremy Banks? It smells similar to me. Well, I never would have dreamed before today that I would consider that, but I would kind of consider that. If you're,
I think
part of the reason Jeremy Banks was upset was NIL money. Part of it. The majority of the reason that wasn't it, but part of it was that, I was told. So if you're upset about it, in South Carolina, a booster calls you and says, hey, Jeremy Banks, if you acted like a complete jackwagon this week, there's $250,000 in it. I mean, why else did he just randomly miss a Monday team event and then get in a fight with the starting quarterback?
That's illegal. That would be illegal at that point. You are literally paying you're paying somebody because he fought Hendon Hooker. You are paying him to assault somebody at that point. That is calling a hit. Okay, that falls under the realms of calling a hit out on somebody. That's a bounty.
That's a bounty. Well, maybe it is, but is it outside the realm of possibility?
Man, now we're getting way beyond. Like, I was thinking of within the legal grounds of what you could do. Like, this is
no. I'm not talking illegal. I mean, I'm not talking legal. I'm talking doing everything you can, because the only way you could figure it out would be the paper trail. And if I'm paying a kid to do this, I'm sure as heck not going to have a paper trail. It's going to be cash money, homie.
I mean, this is so wow. Dave out-conspiracy me. Okay, I'm saying they were getting offered money to probably just not play that week, and Dave's like, no, they were getting offered money to actually sabotage the team directly. And
can I read Levi's comment again? Who's getting pretty interesting on me? He's conspiracy Levi. What if Banks said, pay me more or I won't play? So Milton beat his arse. That is not outside the realm of possibility, Caleb. I'm sorry.
That may not be. Oh my gosh.
It may not be. I'm out conspiracy Caleb. I tell you what, that would not stun me. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. This wouldn't be the only time that a player has been approached by the mob. Caleb, apparently Vanderbilt players may be on the take. Why is that?
So we meant to talk about this earlier in the week, but a bunch of other things were happening. But over the weekend, former Vanderbilt quarterback Mo Hassan said that he once was approached by members of the Italian mafia and offered a lump sum of money to throw games during his playing days in the SEC. Now, this is great. He says he was approached at Jason Aldean's bar in Nashville by the Italian mob to fix football games. And he said this on the Momentum podcast, apparently back in February. And he has also said that while he was separated from his friend group, a man who knew who he was approached him at the bar and offered him $300,000 to throw football games, while implying he already had similar arrangements with Alabama players.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Okay, I don't believe that. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I mean, it's a good story. Do you believe that's happening? That the mob? Am I being completely naive to think the mob is smarter than to approach a player at a bar and talk about other players that he's dealing with, other teams that he's dealing with? That doesn't hold water to me. I'll just be real honest with you.
So there's a couple of reasons I don't believe it. One, Mo Hassan was a backup quarterback at Vanderbilt. If the Italian mob, there is no way the Italian mob is offering a backup quarterback at Vanderbilt $300,000 to throw a game. Vanderbilt's losing games anyway.
Right. And the Italian mob guy goes, hey there, what do you think about, I don't know, maybe dropping an extra point or two? Or maybe, when you got the hold coming for a field goal, maybe you go laces out or laces in.
Now,
what's Hassan doing as a backup quarterback?
Well, he also transferred to USC after 2 years at Vanderbilt, funny enough. But here's where theoretically, okay, we're making fun of it because Vanderbilt loses all the time, so you don't need to offer money. But Vanderbilt plays like 3 or 4 games a year that they could win, where the spread is a certain way. So, I mean, let's talk like his first year at Vanderbilt, they were 6-7. They went to a bowl. They beat Jeremy Pruitt in Tennessee that year by 25 points. And so, I mean, they beat Middle Tennessee, Nevada, Tennessee State, Tennessee. Oh, they just ran the table in the state of Tennessee, basically. Arkansas, Ole Miss. The reason I'm bringing this up is that what if he's being offered money, not just to maybe he's the holder and he's being offered money to mess up a hold. But what if he's just being offered money to give the playbook to opposing teams? That could be a way of throwing games.
Well, that's
giving away the playbook.
I mean, that's happened with Faxgate. Is that before your time?
I know Faxgate with Ron Zook in Florida and Tennessee. Yep.
I mean, that is not outside the realm of possibility, and that was before money was involved. Ron Zook just did it because he was a goofball.
Well, and he took it. Who could blame Ron Zook for taking it? Like, he got the free playbook. Yeah, it's whoever. Well, and also we know this. Former Tennessee offensive coordinator Dave Clawson, when he was at Wake Forest, he had an assistant that was giving his playbook to, I believe, Bobby Petrino when Wake Forest played Louisville one year. And, the only reason I believe it was happening is because Bobby Petrino is probably the most known liar in the history of liars in college football. So if he says it didn't happen, I think it did. And so, I mean, could this have... But, okay, this sounds crazy, but let's talk about some theories real quick. Dave. Yes, the Italian mob you would think is smarter, but I covered crime at a local newspaper. I can tell you guys, Most criminals aren't the Riddler or the Joker. Most of them ain't that bright. Is that fair to say? Most of them do stupid stuff to get themselves caught.
Yeah, I don't think most people are that bright, but anyway.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not saying the Italian mob is not a little smarter, but maybe they aren't as adept or in tune to college football as they think. So they just try to get involved in it and don't even realize that, like, the person they're targeting, they don't have to pay to throw the game anyway.
I still believe we're going to have a major gambling scandal at some point because it's too easy to have an app on your phone and make bets, and now the players have money. I think they could then get in the hole. Maybe you've blown your money, your NIL money, and you go to win it all back, but you don't have any cash to run on an app. So you find this bookie, and then suddenly you're indebted to the mob. I still believe that's going to happen. And I believe that from the time the entire gambling system changed to where it was legalized has been about how long, Caleb?
5 years, not even, if that.
Okay. I've often thought within 5 to 7 years, there will be a major gambling scandal. And it's kind of like the marijuana thing. You know, marijuana is legal in a lot of places. Well, there were a lot of bumps in the road to get there. I think there are going to be bumps in the road still with this, with legalized gambling. I believe that's coming. And I believe somebody is going to either get themselves in the hole, or they're just going to say, hey, I can make a ton of money if not only I throw a game and this guy pays me, or I point shave and this guy pays me $100,000, but I can go gamble on myself too. I mean, what about that? What about you call your cousin? How hard is that? And say, hey, buddy, we haven't talked in a while since Thanksgiving, I guess, but I'm going to go ahead and play really poor defense against Kentucky this weekend and miss a bunch of shots, but we're still going to try to win, but we may not. So go ahead and bet on Kentucky, who's favored by 16.
This is exactly what Temple was accused of last week in basketball. They've been accused of throwing games, betting, and basically, and the only reason no one's paying attention is because they're horrible, and so people don't think it's impacting the sport. I don't think it's crazy. And by the way, it's funny because I just pointed out point shaving is a federal crime, so you can't just throw a game gambling with. If you get caught, you do get federally prosecuted. I think they need to update the federal laws to say this: even if you bet on yourself to win, I still think that should be considered point shaving. And I know people will get mad at Matt.
No, I'm not mad at you. Nobody should get. I totally agree. That's the Pete Rose situation.
Yeah, exactly. When people defend Pete Rose, like, oh, he bet on his team to win every time. I'm like, you're still skewing the odds when you bet on your team and you're making sacrificial decisions long term. By i.e., what did he do? Like, what, Pete Rose bringing in a pitcher to win a game that shouldn't be pitching that day? And I mean, you're going to see that.
You could throw a guy in July or June to win a game that really you need to keep his arm fresh for the playoffs, right? But you've got money on the game, so hey, let's go ahead and send him out there. Send Cole Jarrett out there to close a game. Let's do that. If it hasn't happened before, it's going to happen. City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost thousands or more. Go to cityheatandair.com, cityheatandair.com. Hey, by the way, support our sponsors. That's why we're here. And we only bring you the sponsors that we believe in. And that's why we have built this community in terms of, hey, we do our research. We work with great people. So support our sponsors. That's why we're here. Elias says people are frequently dumb. People are frequently dumb. That happens. And what was Colton's comment on? Oh, maybe Butch Jones was throwing the Florida game when he didn't go for 2 and blamed it on the analytics.
I mean,
coach most likely to throw a game that you've ever seen of all times.
I mean, sometimes, like, again, when I talked about covering crimes, I used to think people wanted to get caught a lot of times, but then I'm like, no, they're just that dumb. No, Butch Jones is just that dumb, Colton. Like, he was so stupid, you thought he was throwing the Florida game because he said analytics told us to go for 1. They scored a touchdown to go up 26-14 in the fourth quarter. What analytics said you go for 1 in that situation?
No good ones. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. And that includes 10% gamblers insurance as well. The link is right down below. So click on that now. BetUS.
America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
All right, Caleb, we want to get to this day in Tennessee sports history, as apparently Nico Iamaleava has been snubbed once again. At what point do people start pointing to Nico? I don't know. Does anybody do any digging? Does anybody call around and say anymore, hey, who are the most exciting players of the team you cover or the team you're a part of? I don't think so. It's odd to me that more people aren't higher on Nico than they are. 2 minutes. Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
Welcome back. I want to encourage you to check out this right there on your screen before we get to that Nico talk. And that guy keeps getting disrespected. Bizarro to me. TristarHatsCo.com. TristarHatsCo.com. 20% off right there. And look at those hats. Even if you're not a Tennessee fan, you can show pride in the state of Tennessee with TristarHatsCo.com. Limited time. You have 20% off. Limited time. You have free shipping. TristarHatsCo.com. And you can click around for their apparel. That hat right on the front is just absolutely fantastic looking. So TristarHatsCo.com. If you want to look fashionable, you need to go to TristarHatsCo.com because there are a lot of people that try to copy them, but there's only one, TristarHatsCo.com. In general, is Nico Iamaleava getting disrespected by the national media? This is going to be, I believe, about the 6th or 7th article that I've read that Nico has not been included in a list of some of the top quarterbacks in the nation. Am I being too sensitive based off the knowledge I have? Because I know I'm right. He's going to be epically good. I have no question, as a matter of fact. So am I being too sensitive that people, not sensitive for Nico, but sensitive that people are in some ways attacking my own judgment because I'm right? Go ahead and give me a call. Just call me. It's 865-6. I'm joking. Go ahead.
So Adam Rittenberg of ESPN did a power ranking of futures power ranking of quarterbacks, not quarterbacks right now, but what quarterbacks rooms will look like in the future. And somehow,
wait, so this is not just Nico. This is the whole room. This is Merklinger as well.
Yes. And somehow in a futures power ranking with Nico Iamaleava, a generational quarterback, and Jake Merklinger, a 4-star quarterback. And by the way, there is this 5-star recruit that's going to be joining the room next year in George McIntyre in 2025. Tennessee is number 12. That's right, guys. You heard it. Number 12. No, look, we're not personally attacking Adam Rittenberg. I actually like him. He came on our show one time. I think you like him too. He's a good guy. He'll address it head on if we ask him about it a lot of times. But I don't know how Tennessee's number 12 with that room.
No, I don't either. And to me, that sounds, if you're doing a futures list, it seems to me to be a little bit out of whack when, I mean, really, shouldn't Texas and Tennessee be in the top 5 because they got an Arch Manning and a Quinn Ewers at Texas and you got a Nico and Merklinger at Tennessee? To me, by definition, if it's a futures ranking, they should be on that. Now, I will say this, too. Smoky Mountain Red said there is hate for Tennessee, and it's clear as can be. We were the first very vocal fan base on social media, and that has rubbed a lot of people wrong. I used to think when people said that ESPN didn't like Tennessee, that honestly, a lot of Tennessee fans were crazy because I think that ESPN does like Tennessee. I think they're treated well when they come to Knoxville. I think that the backdrop of Neyland Stadium is a positive for them. I think it brings in more viewers. But now after the social media, a comment that Smoky Mountain Red says, I'm completely changing my philosophy on that. I believe beyond the shadow of a doubt because of you, Vol Twitter, and I'm saying this as a compliment, don't get insulted, Caleb, but I believe that, yeah, this program is one that a lot of people in the national media don't like. Now, I can't tell you that anybody's ever told me that. And Caleb and I talked to everybody and their brother at SEC Media Days last year. Nobody ever said, now, okay, I will say this. I will say this. Some people that have covered Tennessee and gone on to cover other teams and some national media have said, man, that Vol Twitter and that fan base is pretty crazy on social media. That has happened at least 4 or 5 times. And I just always assume that it's the same with every fan base, right? You have the 10% of people that take it maybe a little too seriously and attack people on Twitter. But maybe Tennessee's different from other schools.
So I'm going to get to that, but let me first steelman Adam Rittenberg real quick in this ranking.
Steelman, what does that mean?
It's the opposite of straw man. I'm going to make the best case for why. I'm going to say what his best would be to do it, as opposed, when you straw man, you accuse somebody of taking the worst case possible. So then you can argue that as if they ever, even though they never made that argument to begin with.
I just would have gone Iron Man.
Okay, anyway. Well, steel man. So I'm going to steel man Adam Rittenberg's argument, because I was very critical because he did have Texas at number 2 because you brought him up with Arch Manning, and last year he had Tennessee at number 8, which how do you drop Tennessee from 8 to 12? He does place value on returning starters, and Tennessee does not have anybody that has started a college football game on the roster at quarterback right now or in the future. So for instance, like Georgia is number 4, you can't like Carson Beck's on the team, and Carson Beck is a future star and has already started. So that's fair, right? To have Carson Beck, to have Georgia number 4 with Carson Beck there.
Sure.
And Texas has Arch Manning for the future, but they also have Quinn Ewers for now. So I'm going to steel man Adam Rittenberg in that. I just think even without a returning starter, I think Nico's so generational. You should still have Tennessee higher. As far as does ESPN or national media hate Tennessee? There's 2 stories to go off here. I thought they didn't like Tennessee in the 90s for a couple of reasons, actually. One, it was very true. ESPN and ABC, Dave, were very resentful that the SEC struck that deal with CBS. Is that fair to say in the 90s? 2, and more importantly, I know this, the people working at ABC, ESPN at the time, Craig James, Lee Corso, those type of guys, they loved Johnny Majors. They loved him. They went back with him, and they had a big problem with Philip Fulmer for how Fulmer took the job away from Johnny Majors. So their anti-Tennessee bias came from their anti-Philip Fulmer bias. And also, I'm just going to say it, if you're a media guy, and Dave, you know this personally, Philip Fulmer is the worst interview possible. You get nothing from him at all. It's the same 5 quotes every day, right?
I think Josh Heupel's the worst interview, to be honest with you.
Heupel's a terrible interview. I agree, but think about Tennessee in the 90s for a minute. You got Fulmer following Majors. Majors was gold for an interview, right? You were never not going to walk away with an epic quote from Johnny Majors if you interviewed him.
Agreed. And you usually just had to ask him about Philip Fulmer after that all happened, and you get an epic interview. But let me ask you, just stop you on one thing with the Lee Corso thing. I don't doubt that that's the case, but back in the day, you would call Lee Corso on his business phone at the pencil factory. Did you know he worked at the pencil factory when he worked at ESPN making pencils? And literally number 2 pencils. And you would call him and he would just pick up. And also, I mean, he would always do sports talk with me and John Wilkerson and Jimmy Hyams. So I didn't know that he didn't dislike Tennessee. Is that out there somewhere, or are you?
Well, people felt that because from about 98 to 2001, he had a string where he picked against Tennessee. He picked against Tennessee every major college game day event during the 98 season when they won it all. And so there was that. So there was just this feeling that he didn't like Tennessee. And he and Craig James in 92, when Majors was fired, you can go, there's a clip of it on YouTube right now. They lambasted Tennessee for firing Johnny Majors nationally. They were very, very... They were the 2 people, like Lee Corso called it a very sad day in college football that a man who gave his life to Tennessee could be forced out because of one bad month. That was his phrase, missing every other detail that went into that firing, by the way. And
how, in retrospect, how inaccurate are we with coaches in predicting coaches and how they will do? I mean, if you had a pick and say, I thought this was a good hire, and it worked out to be the case versus you were wrong, what's your batting average there? Sports Treasures also, besides football, it carries some fantastic baseball memorabilia. Speaking of batting average, carrying over 5 million Sports Treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Daily updates. Follow at Sports Treasures TN. Sports Treasures TN. Again, they're in North Knoxville. They're awesome. Sports Treasures. Caleb, getting back to your point, I don't think we know the majority of it at the time if a coach is the right fit. I like how we throw things out there. I don't like the Kalen DeBoer hire. I think you kind of do. Would I bet more than $100 on it? No. I mean, because I thought the 3 biggest locks for great coaches was Urban Meyer at Florida, Urban Meyer at Ohio State, even though I don't like him morally. I thought Nick Saban, and then wait till you hear my last one. I thought Nick Saban was a lock at Alabama when he went from the Dolphins, right? So I'm 3 for 3 now, right? I thought that Dan Mullen would be the other guy that was a lock fit for the University of Florida. And boy, was I darn wrong.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that with Dan Mullen. I thought so too. What we're starting to learn, and we're seeing this with Billy Napier now, and there's a lot to criticize with Billy Napier, and I don't want to pick on him because we saw this with coaches at Tennessee.
He's very detail-oriented.
Oh, yes, that's true. What I'm learning, and by the way, I thought Dabo Swinney was going to be a bust of a hire. I thought that was a terrible hire. and it turned out to work out.
I did too.
What we're learning with college football, half of the success of a coach is just if they're at the program at the right time. And what I mean by that is, Dave, Philip Fulmer took over Tennessee at the right time with their recruiting budget and ways they were ahead of the curve. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Like if Fulmer takes over Tennessee in 2010, how long does he last?
If he takes over in 2010, I'm having trouble following your logic here. Why would he take over in 2010?
I'm saying theoretically, if Philip Fulmer was the age he took over in 92, if he was that age in 2010, so the same Philip Fulmer, the personality, the intellect, everything, the 42-year-old Philip Fulmer takes over Tennessee in the shape it was in 2010 rather than 1992, how long does Philip Fulmer last?
Well, he wouldn't be able to grind at that age that he did in recruiting.
I'm saying he's 42 years old in 2010.
Right. Oh,
42. He's 42 in 2010. He's the same age he was when he took the Tennessee job anyway. But it's 2010, not 1992. Just think the shape Tennessee is in. How does Philip Fulmer? Or a better way to say that.
No, I see where, no. I see where. No, he does. Oh, so you're saying after he's destroyed the program?
No. Okay. Tennessee is in the same. Okay, let's do it this way. Dave, Tennessee is the same caliber job when Fulmer takes over in 1992 that it was in 2010. How do you think Fulmer does?
Not well. I think he inherited the heck of a program. I think a lot of guys would do poorly in 2010.
That's where I'm at. That's why it's hard to predict. I wanted to get to with respect though with the ESPN.
I don't understand that now. All right, let's say.
So I'm saying it's about the program as much as the coach, whether or not a coach is successful.
Yeah, no, it does matter. I'll tell you what, if he came back, if he ran the program in the ground and then somehow came back as the athletic director, that'd be weird, wouldn't it? Wait, he did.
Okay, it's very true. By the way, I wanted to get to that because this is the reason ESPN, I think, even hates Tennessee with the SEC ties.
That's crazy.
Because this is the real truth. By the way, because the 97 Heisman Trophy, that did have a lot to do with anti-Philip Fulmer bias. It had to do with them over-promoting Peyton Manning, and it had to do with the trainer incident. I think that had a big role in it, don't you think? In 96 and...
Well, all of those may have been little factors, but the biggest factor is that ESPN wanted people to watch the Heisman ceremony like it mattered.
And you've told me don't.
They came up with Big Ten people. Like, you remember Ron Dane? You remember?
Yeah.
They came up with dude after dude.
I want to get to 2017, but just real quick question on that. Didn't you tell me? Do you think that with the way I've heard this, and tell me if it's true, with the way Charles Woodson acted the week of the Heisman ceremony, a lot of Charles Woodson voters regretted their vote?
Actually, it was the Heisman ceremony. It was also the Walter Camp ceremony. He was there, and he demanded 4 first-class tickets, and they typically give out 2 coach tickets. He was very demanding. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of issues in the awards ceremony. I don't even think that's the sad part about it, is I don't even think that Charles Woodson cared that much about the Heisman. I think he just thought it was a fun thing to make a run at, and that's why he did the pose, and he didn't think he was going to win it. But to Peyton Manning and Tennessee, it meant everything. That's the saddest part about that whole story, isn't it?
That is the saddest part of the whole story. And so getting to now, I think the reason they hate Tennessee now is because Tennessee, yes, Vol Twitter, there was love for Tennessee from about 2010 to 2015 when Tennessee wasn't as relevant. But now that they're relevant, you can see just how savage Vol Twitter can be. Vol Twitter nixed a hire of a head coach.
That doesn't happen, does it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
And by the way, media members loved that hire because he's an access coach. And access journalists sports media is littered with access journalists, just like political media is, which is to say they'll run cover for a coach if the coach gives them interviews. And Greg Schiano was a master at that.
I preferred the opposite way. Fear me, and you will do the interview.
And Vol Twitter is that way, by the way. And most of and you know this, Dave, most of Knoxville media is that way. Anybody you worked with, was there any of the people we have on our show this week? None of them are access journalists. Jimmy doesn't need them to come talk to him. They need to talk to Jimmy, honestly, more than Jimmy needs them.
You're right. Apex Apparel right now, 15% off your first order right below. Order apexapparel.com. Order apexapparel.com or call Tyler 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. They've got spirit wear for a school or group. They are fantastic. Apex Apparel, embroidery, screen printing, promo products, headquartered out of Knoxville. So you're supporting local, but they're a national dealer, a one-stop shop for all of your brand supply products. This day in Tennessee sports history. What do we got today on March the 13th, 2024, in which I turned 50 years old? What happened on March the 13th?
It is the 2-year anniversary of Tennessee winning its first SEC tournament title in 25 years when they beat Texas A&M 65-50 on that day. And yeah, the SEC tournament was always a curse for Tennessee, no matter who was coaching, no matter what type of team they had. And they 2 years ago went on a run to win it. The highlight of the tournament was them beating Kentucky in the semifinal 69-62, and then they got lucky to play Texas A&M for the tournament championship. Texas A&M had one of those hot Arkansas runs, and where they won 3 games in 3 days, beat everybody great, and almost won their tournament title, but ran into a much better Tennessee team and ran out of juice. And the NCAA, this was the game that that proved the NCAA selection committee doesn't care about the tournament, because Texas A&M made that run to Sunday. They beat 2 top 25 teams, they beat 2 top 15 teams, including a top 5 Auburn team on the run to play Tennessee. And still, they didn't make the NCAA tournament.
The show represented by Banks and Jones. Tennessee's trial attorneys play to win. BanksandJones.com. Why Banks and Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks and Jones is ready to go to trial for you. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney, Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Again, the link right below for criminal defense or personal injury. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. I thank everyone for tuning in. Go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't out the door. We appreciate you. Weekdays, 10 a.m. Off the Hook Sports and Off the Hook Sports.